The alien woman said, "Everyone is afraid of me, but why aren't you human?" The diplomatic station Aurelian Ring floated silently in space, circling a cold, dying star. Its silver arc shone softly against the dark, filled with hundreds of species that had never lived together before. It was built to be a place of peace, discussion, and careful distance. Some distances, however, were not measured in meters. They were measured in fear. Every being on the station knew her presence before they saw her. Corridors emptied when she moved. Conversations stopped. Hearts raced. Some species collapsed into panic without understanding why. Others locked themselves behind sealed doors, trembling until she passed. She walked alone. She always did. Her shape was almost human, 2 arms, 2 legs, upright posture, but something about her was wrong in a way that words could not explain. Her skin shimmered faintly, not with color but with depth, like looking into deep water. Her eyes reflected light strangely, as if they were looking at you and through you at the same time. She was known in the station records as Subject Valeth. In most databases, she was marked with a single warning symbol: "Do not approach," not because she attacked. Not because she harmed, but because everyone who came near her felt an overwhelming, instinctive terror. No alarms sounded. No danger signals appeared on screens, yet fear flooded the mind anyway, old and powerful, like something left behind from a forgotten past. The galaxy had learned to stay away. That was why the humans stood out. Elias Ward stepped off the transport lift and paused, adjusting the strap of his bag. He was new to the station, fresh from Earth, chosen as a junior cultural liaison. He had spent months studying alien customs, psychology, and communication styles. What he had not studied was her. He noticed the empty hallway first. The station was usually full of motion, floating beings, clicking limbs, glowing forms drifting through the air. But this corridor was silent, too silent. Elias frowned slightly. "That's strange," he muttered to himself. Then he saw her. She stood near the observation window looking out at the dead star. Her posture was calm, almost thoughtful. She did not turn when he entered the corridor. Elias felt it then, the fear. It rose suddenly, sharp and cold, like stepping into icy water. His heart sped up. His breath caught. Every part of his body screamed one message: leave, now. His hand tightened around his bag strap. He stopped walking. For a long moment he simply stood there. The fear did not go away, but neither did he. Elias closed his eyes and took a slow breath, then another. He had learned this long ago, though not from any alien training. Humans learned it as children, how to sit with fear without obeying it. The fear was loud, but it was not a command. He opened his eyes. She had turned to face him. Her eyes settled on him, wide and reflective. Confusion crossed her face, an expression Elias recognized immediately. "Surprise, you," she said slowly. Her voice was smooth, controlled, and strangely gentle. "You are very close." Elias nodded once. "Yes." Most beings would have fled by now. He hadn't. She studied him carefully, as if expecting something to change. The fear signal around her did not lessen. If anything, it grew stronger, pressing against Elias' thoughts like invisible pressure. His hands trembled slightly. She noticed. "Your body reacts," she said. "Your species feels it too." "Yes," Elias replied honestly. "I feel it." "Then why," she asked, her voice quiet but heavy with meaning, "are you still here?" Elias considered the question. Because humans had been afraid their entire history. Afraid of the dark, afraid of storms, afraid of predators, afraid of each other. Afraid of ideas, of change, of being alone. Fear had never left them. They had simply learned how to walk while carrying it. "I guess," Elias said slowly, choosing simple words, "because being afraid doesn't always mean you should run." The alien woman stared at him. No one had ever answered her like that. Most screamed, some fainted, a few begged to be moved farther away, none stayed. "What is your designation?" she asked. "Elias Ward," he said. "Human from Earth." She repeated the word softly. Human. It was not said with fear. It was said with curiosity. The station's monitoring systems were already reacting. Hidden sensors tracked Elias' neural activity, his heart rate, his stress levels. Alerts blinked across control rooms as technicians noticed something impossible. He was afraid. But he was not breaking. One of the station overseers whispered, "He should be unconscious by now." Another replied, "Or running." Elias shifted his weight slightly. "If I'm too close, I can step back." She shook her head slowly. "No, others do not choose, you are choosing." That word choosing felt important. She looked past him down the empty corridor. "Everyone is afraid of me," she said quietly. Entire species avoid my existence. Worlds have changed their orbits to stay away. She looked back at him. But why aren't you human? Elias swallowed. I am afraid, he said again gently. I just don't think fear is the same thing as danger. Her eyes widened just a little. That was new. They stood there, two beings surrounded by silence and fear, neither moving away. Outside the window, the dead star pulsed weakly, its light barely touching them. For the first time in a very long time, the alien woman was not alone. And for the first time, the galaxy noticed something unsettling. The human was still standing. Hidden cameras followed Elias and the alien woman in silence. Behind thick walls and sealed doors, station officials watched screens filled with numbers and slow-moving graphs. Fear levels, stress signals, neural activity. Every line showed the same impossible truth. The human was still standing. Valith, though no one had spoken her name aloud in years, tilted her head slightly as she studied Elias. Her kind did not blink often, but her eyes shifted in small, careful movements, like she was trying to read something written between his breaths. You said you feel fear, she said, yet your feet do not move. Elias let out a slow breath. His chest felt tight, like an invisible weight pressed against him, but he forced his shoulders to relax. My body wants to run, he admitted. That part is loud. Then why do you not obey it? She asked. He smiled a little, not because he felt happy, but because the question reminded him of home. Humans learned a long time ago, he said, that feelings are messages, not orders. She looked confused. Explain. Elias searched for the simplest words. He knew complex ideas, but he also knew fear did not listen to complexity. Fear tells us something might be wrong, he said, but it doesn't always know what that something is. Valith turned slightly, looking again at the dead star outside the window. For us, she said softly, fear means death. Elias did not interrupt. My species evolved around beings like me, she continued. Not my people exactly, but creatures that looked like us, hunters, silent, unavoidable, those who ran lived, those who stayed did not. Her voice remained calm, but something old lived beneath it. So when others feel me, she said, their bodies remember, even if their minds do not. Elias nodded slowly, like an echo. Yes, she paused, an echo older than language. Behind the walls, one of the observers whispered, she's talking, she never talks this long. Another replied, she's never been listened to. Elias shifted closer to the wall, not toward her, not away, just enough to ease the pressure in his chest. Valith noticed immediately. You adjust, she said. You respect the fear without surrendering to it. I think, Elias said carefully, humans had to learn that. We were afraid of everything once. Everything? She asked. Darkness, he said. Storms, fire, other humans. That caught her attention. You feared your own kind? Still do, he said honestly. Sometimes. Valith studied him with new focus. Then why are you alive? The question was not cruel, it was curious. Elias chuckled softly. We made mistakes, many. Fear made us fight, hide, hurt each other. He hesitated, then continued, choosing his words like stepping stones. But some humans did something strange. They stayed, they watched, they learned. Learned what? She asked. That fear could be shared, Elias said, and softened. Valith turned fully toward him now. When one human panics, Elias explained, others can calm them. We touch shoulders, we speak softly, we remind each other that we're not alone. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You bond against fear. Yes, we isolated against it, she said quietly. The station lights dimmed slightly as the dead star outside pulsed again. Shadows stretched across the floor, and Elias felt the fear spike once more, sharp, sudden. He inhaled. Valith noticed. It grows stronger when light changes, she said. You are still afraid. Yes, Elias replied, but I'm also still here. She was silent for a long time. Then she asked a question no one had ever dared ask her. What do humans do, she said, with those who cause fear? Elias did not answer right away. He thought of history books, of prisons, of exile, of wars fought because fear became anger. Sometimes, he said slowly, we hurt them. Valith's shoulders stiffened slightly. But, Elias continued quickly, sometimes we study them, sometimes we protect them, sometimes we learn they were never the danger at all. Her posture relaxed just a little. You are different from the others, she said. They look at me and see a threat. What do you see? She asked. Elias looked at her face, not the fear around her, not the pressure in his head, but her expression, lonely. I see someone, he said, who never got a choice. The words landed softly. Valith's breath caught just barely. No one on the station saw that moment except the sensors, which recorded a strange drop in her fear output, small but real. Choice, she repeated. My existence removes it from others. Elias shook his head. No, fear does that, you just remind them it exists. She considered this. You believe fear can be unlearned, she said. I believe, Elias replied, it can be understood. Silence settled between them, not heavy but thoughtful. From the control room, a voice whispered, fear levels in nearby sectors are dropping. That's impossible, someone replied. Elias leaned back against the wall and slid down until he was sitting on the floor. His legs felt weak, not from fear alone, but from holding himself steady for so long. Valith looked down at him, startled. You are lowering yourself. Yeah, he said. I need a minute. She hesitated, then did something unprecedented. She sat down, too. Not close enough to overwhelm him, not far enough to hide, just beside him. Every sensor on the station lit up. Two beings sat together in the most feared corridor on Aurelian Ring. Valith stared straight ahead. No one has ever chosen to remain near me, she said. Not without restraint or obligation. Elias rested his head against the wall. Then maybe, he said, it's time someone did. Outside, the dead star flickered again. This time the fear did not grow, it softened. And across the station, species who had never questioned their instincts felt something new stir beneath the fear. Curiosity. Two beings sat on the floor of the most feared corridor on Aurelian Ring. No alarms sounded. No one screamed. No one ran. The cameras watched, the sensors recorded, but nothing dramatic happened. And that somehow was the most dramatic thing of all. Valith sat very still. Her kind was built for awareness, for reading danger in the smallest movement. Yet the human beside her did not feel like danger. He felt fragile, temporary, warm, strange things for fear to coexist with. You are tired, she said, noticing the way Elia's shoulders slumped. A little, Elias replied. Fear takes energy. Valith considered that. For us, fear gives energy, it forces motion. Yeah, Elias said softly. It does that to us too, but we learned another way. She turned her head slightly. Teach me. The word hung between them, teach. No one had ever asked her to teach anything except distance. Elias did not move closer. He stayed where he was, breathing slowly. The fear was still there like a background noise, but it no longer filled his thoughts. Humans, Elias began, were not born brave. Valith's eyes flickered with interest. We were small, he continued. Soft, easy to hurt, most things around us were stronger, she nodded once, like prey. Exactly, Elias said, so fear kept us alive, but it also trapped us. Trapped, she asked. Yes, he said, fear told us not to explore, not to trust, not to change. He paused, searching for words that stayed simple, and some humans decided that fear should not decide everything. Valith leaned slightly forward. How did they silence it? They didn't, Elias said. They listened to it. Her brow furrowed. Listening is not silence. Right, Elias said with a small smile. It's understanding. She looked away from him, back to the stars. The dead star outside barely glowed now, its light weak but steady. My people, Valith said slowly, listened to fear too. Elias did not speak. It told us to isolate, she continued, to separate those who caused fear from those who felt it. Her hands tightened slightly against the floor. I was born into isolation. Elias' chest tightened, not from fear this time, but from something heavier. They told you were dangerous, he said. Yes, Valith replied, and so I became alone. She did not sound angry, she sounded factual. Humans did that too, Elias said quietly, to people who scared them. Did, she repeated. Yes, he said, past tense, mostly. She turned sharply. You still do it, he nodded. Sometimes we're not perfect. That honesty seemed to surprise her more than any bravery. What changed, she asked. Elias thought of old stories, of fires in caves, of hands held in the dark. We learned that fear grows in silence, he said, and shrinks when shared. Valith absorbed this. You share fear, she said. We hide it. Yeah, Elias replied, and hiding it makes it louder. From the control room, an observer whispered, her emissions are stabilizing. Another replied, no, they're synchronizing with his. Fear levels around the corridor were no longer spiking. They were leveling out like waves matching rhythm. Valith shifted her legs, copying Elias' posture without realizing it. When others see me, she said, their fear speaks for them. What does it say? Elias asked. That I am death, she answered. That staying means ending. Elias shook his head slowly. Fear lies sometimes, she looked at him sharply. Fear does not lie, it remembers. True, Elias said, but memory doesn't always understand the present. That made her pause. You are not like the predators they remember, Elias continued. You don't hunt, you don't attack, you don't even approach. Valeth's voice dropped. Because I learned not to. That sounds like kindness, Elias said. She blinked. No one had ever described her behavior that way. You restrict yourself, he added, so others feel safe. Yes, she said. Is that not expected? It is, Elias replied, but it's also lonely. Her fingers curled slightly. Lonely, the word seemed to press against something deep inside her. How do humans live with fear every day? She asked suddenly. Elias leaned his head back against the wall, looking up at the curved ceiling. We talk, he said. We write stories. We joke about things that scare us. Joke, she asked. Yeah, he said. It takes power away from fear. She considered that. You mock what threatens you. Sometimes, Elias admitted. Sometimes we cry, sometimes we shake, and still you stay. Yeah, he said. Because fear doesn't get to choose our actions anymore. Valeth studied his face carefully. You are still afraid of me, she said. Yes, Elias replied. But you see me, she said slowly, as more than the fear. He nodded. You're a person. The word felt small for what it carried. Behind the walls, a technician whispered. Her output just dropped again. Why? Someone asked. She's not alone, came the quiet reply. Valeth's voice softened. If others stayed like you, would their fear change? I think, Elias said carefully, it would have a chance to. She stood slowly, movements careful and controlled. Elias tensed but did not rise. I have never walked openly, she said. Only when corridors were cleared. He looked up at her. Do you want to? I do not know, she answered honestly. Hope can hurt. Elias stood as well, wobbling slightly. Humans learned that too, he said, but we decided hope was worth the risk. She looked down the corridor. Far away, a door opened slightly, then closed again. Someone was watching. Not running, watching. Valeth felt something unfamiliar in her chest. Not fear, not yet peace, something in between. Stay, she said quietly. Elias nodded. I'm not going anywhere. And for the first time in her long existence, Valeth wondered if fear was not a prison. But a door, it was still quiet, still wide and empty, but the silence no longer pressed down like a warning. It felt like a held breath, careful, uncertain, waiting. Valeth stood near the observation window, her hands folded loosely in front of her. Elias stood a few steps away, close enough to be present, far enough to give space. They had found a balance without speaking about it. Outside, the dead star continued its slow, weak pulse. Inside the station, something else was changing. In the control rooms, station officials argued in low voices. She is still emitting the fear signal, one said. Yes, another replied, but it's not escalating. A third voice added quietly, and the human hasn't collapsed. They watched as Elias shifted his weight, then leaned against the wall again. His movements were slow, calm, normal near her. That should not be possible, someone whispered. In the corridor, Valeth broke the silence. You are being watched, she said. Elias nodded. I figured. They are afraid, she continued. Yeah, he said. So am I, she turned to look at him. Yet you remain. Elias smiled faintly. Humans are stubborn, Valeth considered this. That may be useful. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Valeth did something no one expected. She took one step forward. The fear in the air sharpened instantly. Elias' heart jumped. His muscles tensed, ready to move, but he didn't step back. He breathed. Valeth froze, watching him closely. You feel it more now, she said. Yes, Elias replied, his voice steady, but I'm okay. She took another small step. Far down the corridor, a door slid shut with a soft hiss. Someone had retreated. Valeth stopped again. I do not wish to harm them, she said quietly. I know, Elias replied. How can you be sure? She asked. Elias met her gaze. Because you keep stopping. That answer seemed to surprise her. You see restraint as intention, she said. Yeah, Elias replied. That's how humans read it. She absorbed that in silence. In the control room, a technician leaned forward. She's modulating her output. Is she capable of that? Someone asked. No, came the reply. At least we didn't think so. Back in the corridor, Valeth turned her head slightly. Someone is approaching, she said. Elias listened. Faint footsteps echoed from the far end of the hall. Slow, careful. A small figure appeared, partially hidden behind the curve of the corridor wall. It was Turin, a Calathi observer, thin, many-eyed, and extremely sensitive to fear signals. His species normally could not stay conscious within 50 meters of Valeth. He took one step forward, then stopped. Elias felt the fear spike again, stronger this time, not just his own, but Turin's. Fear layered on fear. Turin's voice trembled as he spoke. H-human, is it safe? Elias swallowed. Safe, he echoed. No, Turin flinched. But, Elias added quickly, it's not dangerous either. Valeth remained still, her posture open. I will not move, she said, her voice calm and clear. I will not approach. Turin's many eyes flicked between her and Elias. You are afraid, Valeth said to him. That is acceptable, Turin shook. Why you say that, but my body? Your body remembers something that is not here, Elias said gently. Turin hesitated. You are afraid too. Yes, Elias said, and I'm still here. That mattered. Slowly, painfully slowly, Turin took another step forward. The fear in the corridor peaked, then steadied. Turin did not collapse. A soft sound escaped him, halfway between a gasp and a laugh. I am still standing. Valeth watched him with wide eyes. No one had ever stood near her by choice. Now there were two. In the control room, someone whispered, This is changing everything. Valeth spoke carefully. I have lived my entire existence at a distance. Turin looked at her, fear still clear, but curiosity growing beneath it. Distance does not erase fear, Elias said. It just makes it mysterious. Valeth looked down at her hands. I was taught that isolation was kindness. Sometimes it is, Elias replied. But sometimes it's just loneliness wearing a polite mask. That word again, loneliness. Valeth felt it settle inside her, heavy but real. Turin took one more step, then another. He stopped well short of them, but close enough to see Valeth clearly. You are beautiful, he said suddenly, then froze, shocked at himself. Valeth blinked. That is not a word often used for me. It does not remove the fear, Turin added quickly, but it changes it. Elias smiled softly. Fear was not gone, but it was no longer alone. Valeth straightened her posture. I wish to try something, she said. Elias tensed slightly. What kind of something? I will walk, she said, openly, slowly. The control room erupted in alarms. Stop her. No, wait. But in the corridor, no one stopped her. Valeth took a single step forward. Elias stayed beside her. Turin did not flee. The fear surged, then softened like a wave breaking into foam. Farther down the corridor, another door opened just a little. A different species peeked out, watching, learning. This is exhausting, Elias muttered quietly. Valeth tilted her head. You are carrying much fear. Yeah, he said, but it's lighter when shared. She took that in. They walked together, slowly, carefully down the corridor that had once been forbidden. No one screamed. No one ran. Fear remained, but it no longer ruled the space. In the control room, a senior official whispered, The human isn't shielding us from her. Then what is he doing? Another asked. The answer came softly. He's teaching us how to stay. Valeth glanced at Elias as they walked. You are changing how they see me, she said. No, Elias replied. You are. She considered that. For the first time, Valeth felt something stronger than fear. Possibility. It measured radiation, gravity, air quality, and emotional instability. Fear was not usually important unless it became dangerous. On Aurelian Ring, fear had always been treated like weather, something to track, predict, and avoid. Now the numbers made no sense. Across multiple decks, fear levels were changing in strange ways. Not disappearing, not spiking, but moving. Flowing, rising and falling in patterns no one had recorded before. In the control room, analysts leaned close to their screens. It's spreading, one whispered. Fear, another asked. No, came the answer. Control. In the corridor, Valeth and Elias continued walking. They moved slowly, giving space to every being they passed. Some froze in place. Others retreated into alcoves. A few simply watched, unsure what they were feeling. Elias felt the fear press against him from every direction now, not just from Valeth, but from everyone around them. It was heavy, layered, alive. He swallowed and kept breathing. Valeth noticed. You are struggling more, she said quietly. Yeah, Elias replied. Fear stacks. She slowed her pace even more. I can stop, she said. Elias shook his head. No, this part matters. Why, she asked. Because, he said, this is where people learn they can survive the feeling. She absorbed that. A small group of observers stood at the end of the corridor, 3 different species, all nervous, all curious. Turin stood among them, trembling but upright. She is walking, one whispered. And the human is still alive, another replied. Valeth stopped several meters away from them and lowered her head slightly. I will not approach further, she said. You may leave. They did not. One of them, a tall, translucent being, spoke. We wish to understand. Valeth's eyes widened slightly. Elias felt something shift in the air. Understanding was dangerous to fear. "You may ask," Valeth said. The being hesitated. "Do you enjoy causing this feeling?" Valeth answered without pause. "No," Elias added gently. "She feels it too, just differently." That surprised them. "She feels fear?" Turin asked. "Yes," Elias said, "but she lives inside it." Valeth nodded slowly. "Fear has always lived with me. I did not choose it, but I chose not to let it become harm." The observers exchanged looks. "You chose restraint," the translucent being said. "Yes," Valeth replied. "That is unfamiliar," it admitted. In the control room, someone whispered, "She's reframing herself." Another answered, "No, they are reframing fear." As word spread across the station, more beings gathered, never close, always careful. Some watched from behind transparent barriers. Others listened through open doors, and something strange happened. When Elias spoke calmly, fear levels dropped. When he breathed slowly, nearby readings softened. When he laughed quietly, soft, human laughter, the fear wavered. A researcher stared at the data. "He's broadcasting regulation." "That's impossible," someone said. "Not for humans," another replied. Elias did not know any of this. He just knew that staying was harder now than it had been before. "Why are you doing this?" Valeth asked quietly as they paused near a junction. Elias rubbed his face. "Because I know what it's like to be defined by fear." She turned to him fully. "They feared you?" she asked. "Not me exactly," he said, "but people like me, ideas like mine." She waited. "Humans fear things they don't understand," Elias said, "and sometimes they make monsters instead of questions." Valeth's gaze softened. "And humans," she said, "taught you to stay?" "Yeah," Elias replied. "We teach our children how to sit with fear. We tell them it's okay to be scared." "That is gentle," she said. "It took a long time," he answered. Across the station, a decision was made. The station council opened a public channel. Valeth's image appeared across hundreds of screens. Her calm posture, her steady eyes, the human standing beside her. Gasps echoed through shared spaces. "Beings of Aurelian Ring," Valeth said, her voice carrying clearly. "I know I cause fear, I always have." Fear spiked instantly. Elias took a deep breath, steady and slow. "And yet," she continued, "I am not your enemy, I am not your ending." Fear wavered. "I am willing to remain distant," she said, "but I am no longer willing to be unseen." Silence followed. Then a voice spoke over the channel, old, shaking, but present. "We are still afraid," it said. Valeth inclined her head. "So am I." That answer broke something open. Fear did not vanish, but it changed shape. Across the station, beings realized something new. Fear was not a wall, it was a shared space. Elias felt his knees weaken. He leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Valeth noticed immediately. "You should rest." "I will," he said. "Soon." She hesitated, then did something small and powerful. She sat beside him again. Across the station, fear readings settled into a new pattern, not low, not high, but steady. Breathing. In the control room, someone whispered, "The human didn't remove fear." Another replied, "He taught it how to breathe." Valeth looked at Elias. "Your species is dangerous," she said quietly. He smiled weakly. "Yeah, we've been told. Not because you conquer," she continued, "but because you remain." Elias closed his eyes, exhaustion washing over him. "Staying is hard," he murmured. "Yes," Valeth agreed. "But it changes everything." For the first time, beings across the station stayed in the open spaces near her, not close, not comfortable, but present. Fear still existed, but it no longer ruled alone. There were no cheers on Aurelian Ring, no sudden joy, no feeling of victory. What came instead was something heavier and more difficult: uncertainty. Fear had learned to breathe, but it had not learned to trust. Valeth stood alone in a wide public chamber, her presence announced across the station. Transparent walls surrounded the space, allowing others to watch from a distance. Some stood openly, many hid behind screens or doorframes. Elias stood near the entrance, pale and tired. "You don't have to do this today," he said quietly. Valeth shook her head. "If I delay, fear will grow again." He nodded. "Yeah, fear likes empty space." She turned her gaze toward the gathered observers. "I will remain visible," she said, "not as a warning, as myself." The chamber doors opened fully. Fear surged. Several beings stepped back. Some closed their eyes, others froze, bodies shaking under instincts older than thought. Elias felt it crash over him like a wave. His chest tightened. His vision blurred at the edges. He stayed. Valeth noticed him sway. "You are near your limit," she said softly. "I know," he replied, "but this part isn't about me anymore." She absorbed that. In the control rooms, debate turned sharp. This is too much exposure. We should end it. Or we lose the progress. No one agreed. In the chamber, a young being stepped forward, a species barely represented on the station. Small, fragile, shaking badly. "I am afraid," the being said, voice trembling. "But I do not wish to hide any more." The room went silent. Valith lowered herself slightly, making her form smaller, less overwhelming. "You may leave at any time," she said. "Your fear is not failure." The young being nodded, tears forming. "Then I will stay for a moment." Elias felt something crack inside his chest, not fear but pride. This was how it spread, not courage, permission. Valith stood still as the being remained in the chamber, shaking but present. Others followed, not many, enough. Fear still filled the space, but now it had witnesses. "You are changing how they respond," Elias whispered. "No," Valith replied. "They are changing themselves." A sudden spike of fear rippled through the chamber as a door slammed shut behind someone who fled. Valith did not flinch. "That is allowed," she said calmly. "Leaving is allowed." Elias closed his eyes briefly, steadying his breath. Humans had learned this lesson painfully. Fear could not be forced out. It had to be given room. Across the station, news spread beyond Aurelian Ring. Observers transmitted data, recordings, emotional readings. For the first time, the galaxy saw her not as a shadow, but as a being choosing restraint. And they saw something else. A human standing beside her. A species that did not dominate fear, but stayed with it. Valith turned to Elias. "They will not all accept this." "I know," he said. "Humans didn't either." "What did you do when they refused?" she asked. Elias thought of history, of walls and borders. A fear turning into control. "We kept showing up," he said. "We failed a lot, but we kept showing up." She nodded slowly. "That is exhausting." "Yeah," he agreed. Hours passed. Some left, some stayed, some returned after leaving. Fear ebbed and flowed like a tide. Valith felt something unfamiliar growing inside her, not relief, not safety. Agency. She was no longer a fixed point others reacted to. She was a participant. When the chamber finally cleared, only a few remained. Elias leaned heavily against the wall, breathing shallowly. "You should rest," Valith said again. "I will," he replied. "Promise." She hesitated, then reached out not to touch, but to rest her hand against the air near his shoulder. Elias stiffened, then relaxed. The fear surged and passed. "That was unwise," he muttered weakly. "It was a choice," she replied. "I am learning those." In the control room, a quiet voice said, "She's not the anomaly anymore." "What is?" someone asked. "The human response," came the reply. The station council met. Their decision was simple. Valith would no longer be isolated. She would be offered a place, carefully, gradually, among those willing to learn. The announcement went out. Fear spiked again, but it did not break the station. Valith looked out over the chamber one last time. "I have been called a threat," she said softly. Elias stood beside her, steady but exhausted. "I choose to be seen," she continued, "not as fear but as presence." No one applauded, but no one fled. That mattered more. Later, as the lights dimmed and the station quieted, Elias sat alone, head in his hands. Valith approached slowly. "You stayed," she said. He looked up. "So did you?" She considered him for a long moment. "Your species does not remove fear," she said. "It transforms it." Elias smiled tiredly. "Yeah, we're annoying like that." She allowed herself a small, careful smile in return. Outside, the dead star continued its weak pulse. Inside, something new had begun to live. At first, it came as small reports. A station where fear levels no longer spiked without reason. A being once labeled unapproachable, now listed as present. A human envoy whose medical file showed extreme stress exposure, yet no signs of psychological collapse. That last part confused many. On Aurelian Ring, life continued. Not normally, but honestly. Valith no longer walked only in cleared corridors. She moved at scheduled times, openly announced, with options for others to leave or stay. Some always left. Some always stayed. Most hovered somewhere in between. Fear still followed her, but it no longer ruled her. Elias Ward spent most of his time resting now. His body had limits, and he had reached them more than once. Humans could stay, but staying had a cost. Valith understood that. She visited him in the quiet medical wing, standing near the door so she would not overwhelm him. "You should have been removed," she said calmly, "for your own safety." Elias smiled weakly from the bed. "Yeah, I've been told that my whole life." She tilted her head. "That was humor." Good catch, he replied. She stepped a little closer. The fear stirred, but it did not spike. You are recovering, she said. That matters. So are you, Elias answered. Valith considered that. For the first time in her existence, she had a room that was not labeled a containment space. It had windows, soft lighting, a door that locked only from the inside. Choice. The galaxy debated endlessly. Some species demanded distance. Some requested human mediation teams. Others asked the question no one had dared ask before. If fear can change, what else can? Elias was summoned before the station council one final time. Valith stood with him, not beside, not behind, but present. A senior council member spoke. Human Elias Ward. We must ask, why were you not afraid? The chamber stilled. This was the question that had traveled across systems. Elias did not answer right away. I was afraid, he said finally. Murmurs spread. But fear is not the worst thing humans know, he continued. We know loneliness. Valith's gaze sharpened. When humans see someone alone, Elias said, something breaks inside us, even if we're scared, even if it hurts. The council member frowned. That is not logical. No, Elias agreed. It's human. Valith stepped forward. When I asked him that question, she said, voice steady, I believed fear was his enemy. She looked across the chamber at beings watching from shadows. I was wrong, she continued. Fear was his companion. Silence followed. He did not defeat it, Valith said. He did not remove it. He listened to it and stayed anyway. She turned to Elias. You taught me something, she said. Fear is not a warning, it is an invitation. The words echoed through the chamber. The council made its decision. Valith would no longer be classified as a threat. She would be recognized as a fear catalyst, a being whose presence revealed instinctive responses, not danger. And humans would be listed under a new category as well, fear integrators, the species that did not flee. Across the galaxy, training programs changed. New diplomatic protocols were written, not about distance, but about presence. Humans were requested not as guards or enforcers, but as companions in difficult spaces. Elias was offered a promotion. He declined. I think, he said, I've done enough standing for a while. Valith understood. On the day Elias prepared to leave the station, Valith walked with him to the transport bay. Others were present, some openly, some watching through glass. No one ran. Valith stopped at the threshold. I will not follow, she said. This is your path, he nodded. You've got your own. She hesitated. Then she asked the question again. Everyone is afraid of me, she said softly. But why weren't you human? Elias looked at her for a long moment. Then he answered. Because, he said, humans learned a long time ago that fear doesn't mean stop. She waited. It means, he continued, slow down, look closer, stay. Valith felt something settle inside her, not fear, not hope, belonging. The transport doors opened. Elias stepped inside. For the first time in her life, Valith felt the urge to follow, not out of fear of being alone, but out of trust that she would not always be. The doors closed. The ship departed. Valith turned back to the station. Others waited. Afraid, curious, present, she took a breath and walked forward. Across the galaxy, a new truth spread. Humanity did not conquer the stars. It did something far more dangerous. It taught the stars how to stay.